Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross from PTCGRadio, and we're back with the first video in a little while. Blame technical problems, blame illness, blame life getting in the way, but we are back for a little while. And I'm hoping to have quite a few videos up over the next few weeks, starting with a testing deck breakdown. Now, for those of you that are new or don't remember, testing deck breakdowns are exactly what they say on their tin. These are decks to have a play with. These are not decks which I'm expecting to be particularly amazing. These are decks which I think are worth having a go. These lists are not brilliantly tested, although I've tested them a bit and I like them. These are not expected to be ones that you can just take to a tournament and they'll do you fantastically, like a winning deck breakdown might, that being a deck which has done well at a tournament. These are deck breakdowns for decks which you might want to have a go at and see how they fare. Now, this is the first of a few we're going to do based around this particular card, Excadrill. I love this card. It is from the new Primal Clash set, and it is maybe not the best card in the set, but most certainly my favourite card in the set. Now, there's one thing you want to notice immediately here, and this is an ancient trait. Now, for those of you that have not been paying attention, we have a new mechanic introduced in a most recent set, and that is the ancient trait mechanic. And these are like abilities, except they're not abilities, which means we can have them in addition to abilities, but it means things like stadiums or Pokebodies, abilities like Garbodals that would shut off other abilities don't. They go through, and we haven't yet seen anything which will go through or prevent an ancient trait from happening, although obviously I'm sure there's something going to be introduced in the next few sets. And this is the Omega Barrage ability, or ancient trait, and it basically means you can attack twice. But what's really cool, if you read the brackets there, although they are very small, we can actually see that if you KO on the first attack, you can KO something else. So let's say I can hit a Hawlucha for 70 damage, it KOs a Hawlucha, and then something else comes active, another Hawlucha or a Landorus or something like that, and I can hit that again for another 70 damage. Now, the main attack here is Mac Claw. We're hitting for 50 damage, but we're going to be wanting to use Muscle Band and Silver Bangle, more on that in a moment, in order to increase the amount of damage it does. So it's actually doing 100 damage, which for a steel and a double colourless is quite good. But if you add Silver Bangle on there, it's 160 to an EX, or Muscle Band is 140. For free energy, one of which is a double colourless, that's particularly good. But the first attack is also quite good here. Dredge. Search your deck for 2 energy cards and attach them to this Pokemon. Now it says energy cards, not basic energy cards, so you could search for a double colourless energy. For anyone wondering, I'm not using the new Steel Energy, which reduces damage done by 10, purely because there's too much Enhanced Hammer in the format at the moment, and I don't want to be rolling with all Special Energy. I've got to run DCE, so I'm not going to run with a whole bunch of Special Energy. It makes you too weak to hammers. And the thing I really love about this is it does that thing that I love decks to do, and that is it goes from nothing. What I mean by that is you can put an Excadrill up with no energy on, attach 1 energy, use Dredge to search for 2 more, and then attack. So I can have no energy on Excadrill and be attacking that turn. Now that's not ideal. The testing I've done has showed me that if I'm having to use Dredge every turn, the game's not going to go as well as I would like. You want to be using Dredge occasionally in desperation, but you want to be double Mac Clawing every turn. If you can be hitting for 140 or 160 to an EX every turn, you are going to win the game pretty nicely. By the way, the Drillbur is the only, it's the only Drillbur which you actually can use at the moment, so we ain't going to dwell on him. And this is what the deck is built around. We have a bunch of Silver Bangle here. Now, this particular build plays 3 Silver Bangle, 0 Muscle Band. I think that's wrong. Now, I don't know what the split should be. Essentially, Silver Bangle allows you to get a KO with Hypnotoxic Laser on 170 HP EX, or even if it's 180 HP EX, like something like Landorus, it forces them to switch out of the active, or else they're going to die coming into your turn, which is a very powerful thing to do indeed. And we've got Manectric that can hit the bench, so if they are 10 short, it's not a huge deal. Silver Bangle is amazing for EXs, but there's a load of non-EXs in the format. Things like Donphan, things like Landorus, things like Evil Tal. And a double Mat Claw with a Muscle Band will do 140 to a non-EX and basically KOs every relevant non-EX in the format. So although there's only 3 Silver Bangle, 0 Muscle Band in this deck, I think that needs to be changed. Ideally you want 2 of each, but you'd have to cut a card from somewhere to do so. The other way we're adding damage is with Hypnotoxic Laser. That automatically poisons your opponent, doing an extra 10 damage between turns, and it puts you up to 170. And this is really there for EXs. For non-EXs, you're not going to need the Hypnotoxic Laser if you play Muscle Band. For EXs, the Hypnotoxic Laser puts it up to 170 with your Silver Bangle. Now, you'll notice there's no Verbank City Gym. And the reason for that purely is space. Now, there is an argument here to cut down to a free Excadrill line, but Excadrill is what I'm loving, so I really want the full 4/4. This deck is entirely tight. The next one I'm going to show you, Excadrill Seismitoad, is slightly less tight because it's slightly more straightforward. So it's very simple. We run Excadrill, we try and Mat Claw every turn, we've got full complement of DCs to do that, we've got Hypnotoxic Laser to add damage, we would like a Verbank, and we've got some combination of Silver Bangle and Muscle Band. The other attacker we've got here is Manectric and Mega Manectric. Now, Manectric is just a good, efficient Pokemon, but there's other, it can do 120 damage if they've got a tool on for 2 energy. But there's 2 other reasons we like Manectric. You'll notice I kept saying with Excadrill that we might be falling 10, 20 HP short of KOing an EX, yet we're not playing Verbank City Gym to add with the laser. Also, Verbank City Gym is not going to do anything against something like Virizion Genesect, which is going to be immune to your lasers. This is where Manectric EX comes in. Its first attack overrun does 20 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon and 20 to the active. So ideally you would use this to either finish off 2 Pokemon that had half been killed by Excadrill, or you would kill the active Pokemon, put 20 on a bench, and then Excadrill could come in and finish the bench Pokemon. Or the other way round, kill a bench Pokemon, put 20 on the active, and then you bring in Excadrill to finish them off with a double Mat Claw, or Mat Cut. What's it called? It is a double Mat Claw. There we go. So if I'm getting a bit too casual with these videos, hopefully not. Now, the other thing that Manectric does is it evolves into Mega Manectric, and we've got 2 Manectric Spirit Link in there to allow you to Mega Evolve without losing a turn. 2 is the minimum I think we can get away with. I would like 3 or 4, but again, space in this deck is at a premium. It is a testing deck breakdown, so I think there is an argument that a lot of these counts could be switched up just a little bit. And the reason we're playing 2 is because we're probably only going to need this bad boy once a game, but you can evolve him to give yourself more HP to avoid KOs, and just because you can have 1 prized. Now, he's got Free Retreat, which is excellent, but he's got Turbo Bolt. Now, it's a straight 110 HP, and this brings me to the second extra reason I like Manectric. Yveltal is big, and this KOs Yveltal. Now, you can use Manectric EX's second attack, Assault Laser, if your opponent has got a tool on them. We're not running any Team Flare tools to put on our opponent's Pokemon like Head Ringer or Jamming Net, but what we can do is use Mega Manectric, which will do 220 to any Lightning Weak Pokemon. The other thing it does is it attaches basic energy from your discard pile to one of your benched Pokemon. And you'll see the energy line here is far from ideal. We're running 4 Metal Energy because we need it for Excadrill. We're running 4 Lightning Energy because we need it for Mega Manectric. We're also running a Professor's Letter and a couple of Skylar because this is going to help us to search. Well, Professor's Letter helps us to search for the energy. Skylar helps us to search for Professor's Letter, which helps us search for the energy, which is obviously very, very useful. Now, there is a mistake in this particular deck. I've forgotten to put in my computer search. It should be 2 VS Seeker, and there should be a computer search in there. So my apologies for that. There should be a computer search here. You would remove down to 2 VS Seeker and put in a computer search. I believe this is a slightly older version of the deck. And that's why it's so hard to find space for the 4 Pokemon tools, because the 3rd VS Seeker is the obvious thing for me to cut. You could cut a switch, but I think you really need the 3 of them. And what Mega Manectric does is it gives you an alternate attacker for all the reasons I've just outlined, but it also helps you to get your Excadrill going. Excadrill does need free energy, and you have only got so many double colourless, By putting 2 energy on with Mega Manectric, it means you can just put the Excadrill up, attach once, and double Mac Claw. You can essentially get him going without Barrage. And what you've really got here is 2 really good attackers. Manectric attacks more quickly, has more HP, and can help you to bring up Excadrill on the bench, but Excadrill is really going to do a lot of the hard work in terms of getting KOs, which sounds a bit weird, but when you're talking about general KOs, you would usually rather have an Excadrill double Mac Clawing, as long as you've got the appropriate tool, Muscle Band or Silver Bangle, than you would have either a Manectric EX going with Assault Laser, or indeed a Mega Manectric with Turbo Bolt. Because 110 or 120 is rarely going to hit those one-hit KO marks that you need. Unless, of course, you're against a Lightning deck, or indeed you're against a Fighting deck, when Mega Manectric is essentially useless and Excadrill really is going to do all of your hard work. One Jirachi is in there because after a lot of playtesting and a lot of umming and ahhing, I really think you should put a Jirachi in pretty much every deck. I do not like having 8 basics, one of which is a Jirachi, because it means on average I'm starting with him 1 every 8 games. I don't like that. Well, slightly less than 1 every 8 because you're going to start with more than 1 occasionally. But the point is, about, let's say, over 10% of the time, you're going to be starting with Jirachi, and he's very, very weak. But as I've said about the space in this deck, I'm running the bare minimum of supporters. 4 Juniper, because you need to. 4 N, because you need to. 2 Colrus, because it's a very strong supporter, but you can't really run more than 2 because it's not great early game, and we're not running too many basics. And 2 Skylar, because again, it's not always great, but there's so many trainers here like Hypnotoxic Laser or Professor's Letter or Spirit Link or Silver Bangle that we really, really need to get occasionally. So we have to really go ahead and try and, you know, we need some Skylar in there. 2 Lysandra, I would always like more Lysandra, but it's the best we can do. You really need to be able to drag up those bench Pokemon and get the KOs, especially with Excadrill, where you can pull up a bench Pokemon, get the KO, and then it's going to be your opponent's choice, but you get to get, you know, at least 50 damage on a new Pokemon, which they're going to bring active from the bench. 2 VS and not 3, remember one of them is being turned into a computer search, is there because it helps. It's not a supporter until you've played one, but after the first couple turns, that does add consistency. I refuse to believe it adds consistency on the first turn of the game, because it doesn't. If I start VS Seeker and nothing else, it's not helping me. But it adds medium and especially late game consistency, and it means we're effectively playing for Lysandra, which is good. Remember, of course, that Jirachi searches for any supporter that you like. You play it on the bench, search for supporter, and you can get your Lysandra, and that's why we want to play Colrus and Skylar. If you're really worried about the fact that Colrus and Skylar are only sometimes the one you want, you could cut them down to 1 each, but then what are you going to play in its stead? There aren't really any other supporters we like, and that's why we go for a 2-2 Colrus Skylar split. Shauna can be good, but you only get 5. There's nothing I really like other than them. Going through the rest of the deck, we play 4 Laser because, as I've mentioned several times, this is a deck where we really need to be adding a bit of damage here and there, and Hypnotoxic Laser allows us to do so. We go for Computer Search over something like Dowsing Machine because, as much as I love Dowsing Machine, this deck we really need to get the Mega Manectric going with his Spirit Link. We really need to be getting the right kind of energy down for Excadrill or Manectric. We need to be getting that Manectric. We need to be getting that double colourless energy. And although Dowsing Machine will often be fantastic, Computer Search is going to help us more often, I would say, especially with a deck like this where we are cutting corners. You know, we're running a 3-2 Manectric Mega Manectric split. We're only running 2 Spirit Link. We're running a 4-4 basic energy split. We've cut corners and we need Computer Search for that. It's kind of got to be done. The other reason is if we're only playing 12 draw supporters, which as you all should know by now is lower than I would usually like, we can help to mitigate that slightly by going Computer Search. I think any less than 12 draw supporters, even with a Jirachi and a Computer Search, is taking the mick just a little bit. We go to the full complement of 4 Ultra Balls because no other ball is good enough. It's really going to do what we want, and it helps us to search for the Mega Manectric or the Excadrill or even the Drillbur turn 1, which we're really going to need. And other than that, it really is And that basically is it. We've got free switch in there. Again, we'd like 4, but room in the deck. We are helped by the fact that Mega Manectric has a free retreat cost, but sometimes you want Manectric out of the way to put Excadrill up, and we really don't have the energy to be wasting in this deck. The other thing which I will mention just very quickly before I leave you lovely people to it today is Drillbur's attack. Now, there's a lot of Pokemon, not least of which is Manectric, that are fighting weak in the current format. Now, this is far from ideal, but Drillbur works with any of the energy you've got. If you get a Silver Bangle on Drillbur, and let's say you hit 2 heads, then you're actually doing 50 damage, times by 2 for a fighting weak Pokemon is actually going to go up to 100 damage on an EX. You're actually maxing out here at 120 damage on an EX, and that's before you build in Laser. So, although it's not good by any stretch of the imagination, don't sleep on Drillbur as a potential utility Pokemon, because he's really good here against, against fighting weak Pokemon. He can do up to 60 against regular EXs and up to 50 against non-EXs, but it's for 1 energy, he's got a different typing, he's your only fighting type in the deck, so just bear in mind as a utility. That's it for today, ladies and gentlemen. Do leave some comments down below, unless your comment is, where's your ace spec? Because I've answered that one twice, and that shows you haven't watched my video, and that makes me sad. If there's any deck breakdowns you really want me to do, any videos you'd like me to do, let me know. My top 10 cards of Primal Clash is coming later this week. And there will be all kinds of other decks, including a couple games played with this particular deck, as well as my Excadrill Seismitoad deck. As always, thank you very much for watching. Make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. And go find some friends to subscribe. It will be fun. Have a lovely day. I will see you all very soon.